Doctor Who is saved, everybody, by Ncuti Gatwa. That's what the critics say, giving it a perfect 100% review score. And quite frankly, I'm not surprised. I mean, this Doctor has learned from the best. David Tennant, many people's favourite Doctor, has been a guiding therapist father figure.
Not you, mate. I've got this. Off you pop. Bye-bye.
Waited your whole life?
You wish.
Weird contradiction in terms. A father is there to tell you to grow up. He's there to teach you how to be a man and handle the world, not be an emotional therapist. But either way, he's been the guiding light to Ncuti Gatwa as he prepares for Doctor Who. And Gatwa has definitely taken the cue from many people's favourite Doctor, where he said if you're bothered by things like some of the last messages in the previous series, well, just F off and let people be.
And those people are clearly on the wrong side of history.
And so obviously, as Tennant is his guiding like father figure, Ncuti wasn't going to let him be the only person attacking the fans. If that's how you're supposed to behave, then someone with 100% review score wasn't going to let himself be outdone, was he?
Or weaponisation of these topics by mostly the right wing or a certain section of society.
This is a guy who Russell T Davies thinks will, in 5 years' time, be leaving massive movie franchises, and security will be holding Russell Davies back as he promised me a ticket. Welcome to the future face of Britain in Hollywood. A skirt for all to see. It's even divided at the front rather than the side, so if a situation arises, he can quickly get his cock out.
And so pretty that I hardly can believe I'm real.
The Doctor is always prepared. That's why it was interesting his comments that came out of the Variety article about his casting, Russell Davies' return, and how the Disney Plus deal revolutionised the franchise. Yes, this isn't your dad's Doctor Who, because it's not British for a start. No, this show, now it's not just the BBC that was bad enough on its own, now has Disney involvement, and that means we can embrace Americanised values, such as everybody in the world is exactly the same with no difference between them, and all male values are evil and should be replaced with feminine ones. So be a good little boy now and put on your skirt.
And a lot of us on the production team had the problems with that, of associating disability with evil.
That's where Gatwa came through with his inspirational comments. And when I say inspirational, I don't mean for you. I mean inspired by the other bigots involved. Where he took the incredible marketing tactic of saying, if you don't like it, well, just don't watch. Turn off the TV. Go outside and touch grass. For God's sake. Now, don't watch Doctor Who, go and do something else with your life, I think, is quite a base message. I just didn't expect it to be coming from the star of the show. I'm so crap you shouldn't watch me. It's definitely a revolutionary marketing tactic for a new era. Maybe he's forgotten who he's working for, because sure, it's not like the BBC need the money. They get paid by taxes anyway, they don't really care if you watch. Disney do though. Gatwa, have you forgotten that Disney do actually need the customers that you're scaring away deliberately?
One touch to show me no.
Because he had many other comments for people. Like, I feel that anyone who has a problem with someone who's not being the Doctor, well, you're not really a true fan of the show. If you want a British man to play the British Doctor Who, then you're not really a fan of Doctor Who. At least not the new one. The Americanized one. The one made for the world. It's not made for the British anymore. This is the international, all-encompassing Californian Doctor Who.
Death trap. Check everything.
Don't leave her.
You did too?
And if you don't like California, are you even a fan of England? As after all, representation is important, and that's why it's not important if the British are represented in British television. And if you're thinking none of this makes any sense, trust me, I agree. But this isn't about making sense, this is about jumping through the logical loopholes which they've created for themselves, such as if you have fun, well, you've got to be happy.
I feel pretty and witty and
Happy, in the traditional sense of the word. Apparently, Russell T Davies says that his doctors weren't exactly the straightest men on the planet, because they have a lightness and a joy about them. That just chimes with the energy to him. You heard it here first, folks. If you reproduce and continue the human species, well, then you're a miserable person. Now, admittedly, grain of truth, as you are probably married, but still, it doesn't make it any less of a bizarre comment. That's why I have a feeling people won't struggle with Ncuti Gatwa's message of don't watch. It's a bit like telling the horse to bolt after it's already bolted, or explaining to Lizzo what she has to do at an all-you-can-eat restaurant. Don't worry. She already knows.
There was a lot of eating. There was a lot of food.
Because this Doctor Who is embracing a marketing strategy that even Disney knows is the wrong thing to do now. Remember with Star Wars, they realised, well, we've got to bring back the old people. The people actually like. Bring back Kenobi and hopefully save some of the fandom. That was Disney's Star Wars tactic.
Some of the fan base just sickened me to my stomach. You're no Star Wars fan in my mind.
And yes, they tried that with Doctor Who. They brought Tennant back.
That ship didn't crash. It parked.
It's a shame you're not a woman anymore. She'd have understood.
Kind of missed the mark though when they did this.
We've got all that power, but there is a way to get rid of it. Something a male-presenting Time Lord will never understand.
I mean, at least Kenobi didn't bring you back to drop a Cleveland steamer, but Tennant, they didn't care with that show. It seemed almost custom designed to bring the audience back just so they could tell them to F off again. And the marketing for Gatwa is no different in that regard. And I don't even mean the third-party marketing, you know, the ones where it's like, Jodie Whittaker and Joe Martin can't be the show's last female doctors.
Get her back here right now, so I can loofer her to death.
If some random journalist wants to destroy the show with their own opinion, that's entirely different than it coming from the show's creators themselves. And yet, that's what you get in the official images, with new pics teasing Stephen Mossad's episode Boom. I will shatter this silly little battlefield into dust with his, well, look, I mean, the TARDIS is an incredibly massive place which has multiple swimming pools. It also seems to have a throbbing, veiny flesh stick, which can only be described in the two words of it's made of flesh and he set light to the end of it. And if you think I'm reading too much into it, I can zoom in. I don't know what else that's meant to be. Look, it's even got an entry point on the end. This is not an accident. Just like it wasn't when he said he got snowmanned.
Don't mind, I just got snowmanned, and I would like to go home.
A term that I didn't even know, and I think he expected nobody to know, outside of the target demographic. I can't even read this out, but let's just say the first words are the act of inserting. Just one of those times where you hear it, you think, hang on, that sounds a bit weird. There's definitely more to that statement. And then you look it up, and you have to go for therapy. It literally ends with, like a carrot in a snowman's face. You're not subtle, Davis, are you? That's how I ended up trying to talk to David Tennant. And he told me to F off. It really didn't help my mental state, I tell you.
I'm clinically an asshole. Nothing I can do.
And just in case you think I'm reading too much into that, even after I've zoomed into it, well, Gatwa himself said he wants Doctor Who to feature a dance scene where he destroys a monster with twerking. We've now reached a point where the romance with Rose has been so thoroughly destroyed, the only way those two could even be together is if the phrase that described them included the word hag. I need a big dance number. That's what I'm going to put into the universe. A big, fierce dance routine. Or maybe some death drops. I don't actually know what a death drop is. So I googled death drop, and the first thing I got was this Mashable video, Learn How to Death Drop Inside Drag, with someone who I'm fully expecting to be the next Doctor Who after Gatwa.
1, 2, 3, bang!
I don't even know what I've just watched. It seems to be less of a dance move and more just falling over because you're pissed. I've almost certainly done that accidentally in my younger days.
That was actually really good.
That was a good one? I'm sorry, this video seems to have got off the rails, but I'm kind of amazed.
Let's get sickening.
Oh,
What is happening?
that's actually not bad. If you're wearing the wig and the pad, you're not afraid of the pain.
Yeah. Worse stuff have already happened to you in your life. Pain isn't even that big of a deal anymore. The pain's already been internalized by that point. So what we've found out is he wants a big fierce dance number where then he will drop the monster by falling on him. Although, let's face it, it's probably not the first thing that he's suffocated with his ass. And don't worry, just in case you were wondering, he talked about his costumes for the show. She laid out her sketches on the table. I saw kilts and skirts, which is just a rebuttal for anyone that says, oh no, he's not wearing a skirt, it's a kilt. No, he does know the difference. He's from Rwanda. Don't worry, I'm sure he's going to be using their tartan.
Is the pretty girl in that mirror there? Who can that attractive girl be?
And all kinds of gender-pushing, societal-pushing outfits. And he was like, yes, let's do all of them. Nothing is too far for Gatwa. Because we're no longer restrained by British morality or male morality. Remember, we've Americanized this bit.
Weaponization of these topics, clearly on the wrong side of history.
Disney is involved in this, and for anyone going, oh, they just threw a bit of money at them. But they're not going to have too much influence. Well, I mean, everything seems to disagree with that. Not just everything they pushed, which, you know, you could say was the BBC. The BBC are just as bad as California themselves, I agree. But this is no normal new series of Doctor Who. The first sign of that was on Rotten Tomatoes, where it went Doctor Who Season 1. In 2024. This isn't just any new series of Doctor Who. This is a fresh start. Now Disney's involved, we are separating it from what came before entirely. Davis himself has even come out and says, we don't talk about previous Doctors on the set. No, it's more exciting to look forwards into the new era. And if you think this is just a mistake on Rotten Tomatoes, I mean, it isn't, because people are mentioning it in the reviews that have come out. Doctor Who Season 1 review. Or Inverse, which is saying Doctor Who reboots itself with flair, but not much success success. 100% review. It's not successful though. And it can't be a mistake when this didn't happen with any of the other series. I mean, they were all listed with all the other Doctors all together on the same review page, and you could just click through and see literally everyone on there, all of the specials, going up past season 10, season 11, even Jodie Whittaker's stuff.
Very well.
Where nothing was separated out until the new era, where we entirely swapped morality and the values, from British to the greater world. And as we've learned from the past, that always worked with television shows. When you take something that's British, made of British culture, and then extrapolate that to, oh, it's just the world now. Like we had The In-Betweeners that was British, and the American version, which was awful, cancelled after one season due to poor ratings and reviews. Or we had Coupling, that was British, and Coupling America, that was awful, made as a replacement for Friends, even used the original scripts, had poor critical reception and only 4 episodes broadcast. The final 3 episodes weren't even filmed, and 6 of them never saw the light of day. Even when they used the exact same scripts, something was lost in translation when you removed the British people and put American people just in their place and had them say the same things. This stuff doesn't translate. There's more to it than words. These are specific things that belong to a place, and the culture can only be represented by the people of that culture. If you take a British thing and make it international, it ruins it.
Coders, come and try us with a
J.K. Rowling had a strict British-only rule for Harry Potter because it was the only accurate way to represent a British school. And while the Doctor may be an alien, he fully represents British culture, even down to a love of the weird, the crazy, the eccentric, whose heart is in the right place. Yes, he's bizarre, but there's something charming about that. There's something wholesome about that. And that quirkiness can't be replaced by just banging a skirt on him.
I just got snowmanned and I would like to go home.
You can't replace wholesome by talking about getting snowmanned.
If you're wearing the wig and the pad, you're not afraid of the pain.
Now, of course, the whole idea behind marketing is to try and drum up hype for something, make it sound like everyone agrees. There is an idea within humanity that lots of people like to be sheep and flock together, so if something's popular, other people will watch it because it's popular. And one of the points of marketing is to make it seem as if everybody else, this is the must-watch film that everyone else is seeing, you should see it too. Maybe that's why they're hiding posts on Twitter that don't like them. I'm not against moderating posts depending on what they say, but the thing with Twitter is you can see what they hide. And if you click, so they're seeing what they hide. 2 weeks until we can see how bad they've messed things up. This guy just doesn't like it because America gets the show first, which is a perfectly reasonable comment. There's nothing offensive about that at all. And it is bizarre for a British TV series. It's not, however, bizarre for season 1 of a new international remake. This guy gets a little bit confused, I think, when he's super excited. I don't care what people have to say. F the fans. Mixed messages on that one. No thanks. And this one is literally just him saluting that they hid. There's not even a message, it's a meme. Hardly the massively offensive must be moderated comments that you'd expect when you go to such lengths as to hide them.
You make it sound so ominous, isn't it?
But with all of this, is it a surprise when TV writers are going, it's such a brutal time to be a TV writer, I can't get a job. People are in survival mode. Or how the Broadcasting, Entertainment, Cinematography and Theatre Union in the UK said that 68% of film and TV workers are not currently working on the 9th of February 2024. 68% report their employment being directly affected by the industry slowdown. And in the time of a national shutdown for the British entertainment industry, you decide to take one of the epitomes of British television and turn it into an international mess. People like Doctor Who, because it was British, because of British values. Values which are actually the foundational points for many countries around the world. Then you decided to instead forget the foundations and just take on the modern bit, the top of the pyramid, the crumbling, rotting mess that they've built upon them. Maybe that's why it's exciting to look forwards, because at least when your unstable mess collapses, we'll at least be able to return to the solid foundations from the beginning.
I promise I can help him get home and then you'll never see me again.
You're assuming he as a pronoun.
Clearly on the wrong side of history.
Well, Gatwa did have an interesting point that he made in one of his things, where he was complaining about white mediocrity, how that gets celebrated. But for people like him from Rwanda, they have to be flawless to get half of that. And he actually went further. He says, we're trained, I think he means Rwandans, to be like, if you're not exceptional, I won't be loved, which in the entertainment industry or any public-facing industry, yes, you're trying to amass an audience, and many other people are competing for the attention of the audience. And so, as viewers, you will gravitate to the people that you think are the best, and that's a good thing. That means that talent is naturally rewarded, and lack of talent isn't. That's beneficial for everybody. The best people rise to the top, and the customers get the best products. Everybody's happy. It's not what Gatwa is interested in, though. No. He says for him, he's just learning to be like, oh, well, you're allowed to be loved. You don't have to be excellent, or even aspire to be excellent. You don't need to be the best anymore. You don't even have to aspire to be that. Why would you care about the quality of your product? Why would you aspire to have a quality product in the first place? You would only care about that if you actually thought that the audience deserved it. And as we've already seen, those people can F off. And if they're not happy with him, not even wanting to make a quality product, well, don't watch, turn off the TV, go and touch grass. Accept his mediocrity, his lack of aspiration, or just go outside.
And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil.
That's why it's so weird, his original message, when he explains it. He thinks other people's mediocrity is accepted when he preaches how he wants to be mediocre at best himself and never aspire to improve. I bet you the people he's complaining about aspired to improve. I bet they aspired to be excellent, which is probably why they were. It's probably why they were successful. But he doesn't see that. He thinks they're mediocre and had to actually claim it was about their skin. Probably doesn't have the ability to actually judge the quality of other people when he can't get over what they look like. No, he thinks it's absolutely awful that people like him get judged on anything and they have to actually be good at something. So he's training himself out to be like, no, you deserve love just for existing. And that's taught me to be more loving in a weird way. He just wants to be loved for existing. You should like him because he's there. You should be grateful that he's even shown up in Doctor Who in the first place. And if you don't like it, go and touch grass. He doesn't have to provide a quality experience. He doesn't have to be competent. He doesn't have to be good at something. The fact that he's there is enough. And this is what I've said before. When people say, well, you need to make a quality product, they have a different idea of what a quality product is. It's no longer about what people do. It's no longer about the values of the thing. You're not a good person because of what you do. You're a good person because of what you are. Gatwa is a good person because he exists and looks like he looks. Any deeds, actions, or talent is entirely extraneous to the idea of what is good and what isn't.
Go yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is.
And remember, it's incredibly important that we're pushing boundaries in Doctor Who, both with the clothing and the casting. Well, simultaneously, I don't know how anyone could be so angry over something so inconsequential. It simultaneously is the most important thing in the world and entirely inconsequential, depending on who's saying it. I mean, we do see a shift happening in casting, not a fast shift. Things could tip over the other way a bit quicker for him. He wants it to move faster than it is, but you see all people malfunctioning because things are changing. But it's simultaneously inconsequential and needs to tip over even quicker. It's a great thing, it's important, but it actually doesn't matter at all. No wonder he doesn't aspire to have talent or be excellent. It's incredibly difficult when that's the limit of your argumentation. The British press can be very mean. They're British, it's part of the culture. But it doesn't seem to be part of the culture of television and movie critics from an international audience.
I love movies. I love making them. And I am a fan of movies.
For an international Doctor Who. No, for them, it comes down to something very different. Does it align with what I want to push in entertainment? And so, I can understand why they like it when, you know, well, it's actually always been like this. We've always been at war with East Asia. Since the first of the 10,000 were created, there have always been female custodians. And that lightness, that joy, that chimes with the right energy for the reviewers. So I can understand why they like it. Because, you know, previous versions of Doctor Who, well, they felt geared towards a family audience. They were meant for the broad audience. Most people in the country. A husband, wife, and 2.4 children. But we can't do that anymore because that's normal. That's how the civilization continues throughout the ages. And we've moved past that. And so now this has been taken over by Disney. It's no longer about family. No, instead, this reads more as the lasers on younger children, peeking out from behind the sofa, but not their parents. They are aiming it at the kids, but not the people that made them. That's a bit too, normative for Disney. Now, this is an updated version. Fun, dynamic duo, some great dialogue. I think we've been given a taste of that dialogue from the earlier David Tennant episodes.
Yes, we know. We know everything. Thanks.
And you know nothing.
Gatwa, already perfect. While some Time Lords were a work in progress, he's the finished article right from the jump, and boy, Did he have a jump?
I just got snowman, and I would like to go home.
Vibrant, buff, keen, filled with exuberance, fabulous. I will say that I think Ncuti is absolutely fabulous. Distinctly different from what came before. He fully captures one plausible aspect of the Doctor's personality. One, fresh. Boldly goes in a different direction. Drastically different from its predecessors. Season 1, strangely distant. A breath of fresh air. Campy glee. Full-blown comedy. Which, as my favourite episodes, were definitely the darker aspects of both Eccleston and Tennant. Saying it's turned into a full-blown comedy doesn't exactly inspire confidence in me. Embraces changes at every opportunity. If that isn't the Doctor, I don't know what is. Changing from the Doctor into something else entirely is definitely the Doctor. IGN, are you high? I mean, you called it the adventure of a lifetime and gave it a 9. So I'm just asking, because all the evidence points to it.
The industry talks a lot about identity.
And then you get some of the weird comments, like confusing and alienating. Still gave it a fresh, though. Kicks off a new era of Doctor Who. A new era. That's what you get from a lot. And this inverse one is an interesting article when that's the one that starts, with it reboots itself with flair, but not much success. Because the episodes are confusing and a bit alienating. Tonally bizarre, but occasionally brilliant. They're a mixed bag. This is the whole point. You've had 3 episodes and you're already saying that they're confusing, alienating, and a mixed bag of quality, of which they're only occasionally good, and that they're frustrating, both for longtime fans and newbies. And yet they marked it as fresh. It just doesn't sound like a positive review to me. The Devil's Court is an intriguing marriage of high-concept sci-fi with high camp, which is a promising look of what the new era of Doctor Who could look like. How very Disney of you. She also goes on to comment that Davies retreads the formula that he established in 2005, but he leans into the glossy, new-funded Disney look, which he may not realise the formula doesn't work anymore. Or, as one fellow critic told me after watching the episodes, maybe I'm just not 14 anymore. And that's an interesting comment, because it's very easy to fall into. I don't like this thing now. I liked the thing before. Maybe I've just grown up. I had that same problem with Avengers Endgame. Hated it. Thought it was absolutely awful. Bored me to tears. I thought maybe it was me. So I went back and watched Infinity War and loved it. And the thing is, you can still do that with Doctor Who. You go back and watch the Tennant episodes, they're still just as good now as they were when I watched them back then. So no, it's not your age or that the formula doesn't work anymore. It's that what they're making is crap because they've changed entire moral systems. No longer is this based in masculine values, it's based in feminine ones. And you can't make those kind of heroes, they don't work. Going into more detail about what I mean by that is a video I'm planning in the future. I don't know when it'll get out though. It'll depend largely on when there's a gap in topics to talk about. No, instead these episodes seem to be carried by far too many lines of the Doctor shouting enthusiastically, "Space babies." It assumes a complete lack of knowledge of Doctor Who, probably because this isn't Doctor Who anymore, this is a new thing made for the international audience, rather than being made for the British audience and then selling it to other people who happen to like British things. Hence why it's season 1.
At the end of the day, this is a story of representation, and it matters.
Longtime fans spend a lot of their time twiddling their thumbs as they wait for good stuff. While it goes out of the way to introduce the show to a new audience, it paradoxically forgets that it's got to actually appeal to them. Doctor Who is about constantly playing catch-up to somebody who's vastly smarter than you in a vast and charming world. So by holding the viewer's hand, they're trying too hard. And this is a problem that I've seen before with British to American shows, in that they think that American audiences are thicker and so talk down to them all the time, which is one of the reasons why the shows transitioning over there fail. They don't respect the intelligence of the audience. They feel as if they have to explain everything to them. We've also seen this in various other shows. Rings of Power, Secret Invasion. Rings of Power had to tell you that a map was Mordor 5 times or something in about 30 seconds in different ways just to make sure you've got it, because they think you're thick and can't understand the first time. I still think this is because the writers are thick as pig shit, but maybe that's just me. The silly, strange, campy sci-fi show that made its hardcore fans fall in love with it is arguably engineered to ward off new viewers, which would also mean if you change that to try and appeal to a new audience, then you would destroy what Doctor Who was. You can only make a thing for an audience, and that is fixed. People can like it or not, but there is no such thing as widening an audience because you destroy the original construction and obliterate the original fans that you were trying to expand in the first place. So by the time the second episode rolls rolls around and they start bringing out the lore, you start to wonder who this season is even for. The 2 episodes are actually most successful when they stop aiming for mass appeal. It's almost like trying to appeal to an international audience on a British show doesn't work. Just because the world is allowed to like the British thing doesn't mean that you should be targeting them with it. Just because you're not actively excluding people from watching it doesn't mean that you should be including them in the creation of it. Then they go on about how amazing Gatwa is. I'd be incredibly surprised if any of the mainstream critics even dared to comment that he wasn't exactly perfect. There's too many boxes ticked for them to penetrate the layers of deflection. But the show's attempt at a reboot is kind of a fool's errand. Clunky episodes to stop us watching the entire season. Doctor Who is missing the forest for the trees, with its fixation on a fresh start. I do wonder how much of that is Disney going, well, we're here now. The Americans are in the room, and we can make it better. Don't worry, we can take this thing, which is already incredibly popular, and we can fix it. Yes, the BBC has been hard at work actively destroying it for years, but have you considered turning it into a Californian production where we can stick the final nail in its coffin for good? Instead, it ends up convoluted and weird. A true reboot might actually be impossible. Well, it is impossible unless you want to make Doctor Who not Doctor Who. By trying to reboot something, you inevitably destroy the original thing, as proven with the American coupling, where they even took the original scripts and still destroyed it. You lose the authenticity in the work when you do it. But what may be possible is for Doctor Who to maintain its identity as a weird little sci-fi show that wears its heart on its sleeve and doesn't think about how it looks. But it won't be in this day and age. It won't be with the BBC. It won't be with Gatwa. It won't be with Russell T Davies. And it won't be with David Tennant. Because even the people that made the original show great are no longer those same people. Over the years, they've changed, their ideas have changed, and their moral values have changed. And that means that anything that springs from those values will be an entirely new creation, one which is antithetical to what came before. Because everything in life is ordered by hierarchy. Ideas aren't equal. People aren't equal. Some things are better than others. And as soon as you move away from masculine values, you move away from male heroes. And that means that you move away from what Doctor Who was at its core. And there's no way you're going to get that back unless you embrace those values again. And while it only took all of the people that made the original thing 20 years to move away from it, I have a feeling it'd take them a lot longer to get back, as they'd only do it for one reason. If the culture changed, so it became beneficial for them to fake that they believed it in the first place. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.